Welcome to another week of Barstool Perspective, where we give you a breakdown of the booze news of the previous week. I'm Mike Morgan. Who the hell, sir, are you?
I am Brett Coleman Baker, and I can't tell if this glass was washed poorly or if this beer doesn't taste as good as I remember, and I'm a little disappointed. Would you care to try it? Shield your eyes if you're COVID adverse still. We are sharing a beer.
Oh, yeah, it's not very good.
No, it tastes kind of chemically, right?
Yeah. I think it's a bad batch.
That's disappointing. Speaking of disappointing, we're going to get into the news of the week because that's what we do on this show. We talk about the beer news of a week and we give you our opinions and spins on what's happening and what it means for you.
And the weed.
Yeah, okay, I said beer. I meant booze. We give you the booze news, the drug news. I guess we don't do illegal drugs. We do gray area drugs.
We might branch out.
We got a new cocaine segment starting at the end of this week. We're going to talk about cocaine-fueled movies and what made the 80s so great. In the meantime, let's talk about imports. Imports, Mike. Everybody is talking about imports because of one big special word. And that word starts with a T, and that word is tariffs. Mike, can you explain to me, like I'm an idiot, what a tariff is?
Well, a tariff is a charge for importing a good, which is theoretically supposed to charge the importer and give a competitive market edge to domestic producers of the same products. So sometimes they do work, and when it comes to alcohol, if you're going to slap a big fat tariff on Modelo, for example, then it probably is in fact going to help Budweiser. If you're going to slap a big fat tariff on aluminum, it's going to help American aluminum producers, but since there are none, it's just going to screw breweries.
So, a tariff basically says if Mexico's importing a case of Modelo for $10, we're going to charge you $5 extra. That's the tariff.
Yeah.
And that $5 isn't something that Mexico or Mexican breweries will just eat, because then away goes their profit margin. So they just raise their prices by $5 extra. Yes. And then the importer, who just paid $5 extra, has to pass that off onto the retailer because they're not going to just eat $5 extra. Yes. So they do $5 plus 30% because they still need to get their margin.
Right.
So it actually ends up being $6.50, and then that $6.50 extra that the retailer just paid needs also to make their margin. So they raise it 25% more. So that $6.50 now becomes about $8.50, and then all of a sudden your Modelo that cost you $6.99 for a six-pack now costs you $8.99 for a six-pack.
Yes. Significant inflationary cost. And so you can use tariffs tactically if you are trying to give a benefit to domestic producers of certain products. But again, if it's something like aluminum that we don't make here and we can't make here, then a tariff on aluminum just dramatically increases the price that retailers make.
Yeah, in theory, a tariff on French wine means that there is going to be more demand for American wine because the French wine becomes more expensive.
Right.
But you're right. The issue isn't that it's consumer goods that's going to pinch us. It's aluminum. It's all the tech and the microchips and everything else that we get. So, yeah, tariffs. So here's the thing. Modelo is the #1 brewery in the country by volume right now, and dollars. It overtook Bud Light. Mike, is this a 3D chess move by the incoming administration in order to make American beer great again?
Brett, there is one thing that I can guarantee you about the future, and there are very few things at this point, but one of the things that I can guarantee you is that this administration does not do 3D chess moves. It doesn't even do checkers well.
85% of Constellation brand sales are through imports. Constellation, as you may or may not know, owns the rights for importing Modelo, and they also own the production of Corona. So Constellation would get absolutely crushed by this. Bud Light may or may not be saved by this.
Bud Light's not going to be saved by it, but Constellation might get screwed.
We did talk about how to save Budweiser and Bud Light in the past. Neither of us mentioned tariffs.
We did not. No. Well.
And I'm not saying this because we know everything.
I think largely because it was a dumb idea. But, yeah, Tariffs might, in fact, help Bud Light, which would be an astoundingly ironic thing to happen.
Well, did you see that Kid Rock got himself an appointment?
No, what's he ambassador to?
Arts and Humanities. He is the head of the Arts and Humanities.
Oh, well, museums in America should get much better now.
Just fucking ball with it, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. In other news of foreign companies, Diageo, makers of lots of different spirits, has decided to consolidate their high end into one singular group. There's probably a couple reasons for this.
Yeah.
One, it's because premiumized products are doing worse. So I think from a business standpoint, it helps isolate your losses. Mm-hmm. And two, it helps them focus that division on the few growing or the ever decreasing segment of ultra rich that they can actually target their stuff to.
Yeah, probably lets them corner the market, particularly, as more of those brands fall off. It may be a smaller piece of overall pie, but if they're getting a bigger chunk of it, then there's going to be efficiency there, and it's probably a good move. But here's
A good business move.
A good business move. Here's the thing with Constellation. I don't know. Oh, is this Constellation or Diageo?
This is Diageo.
Diageo is
I wasn't going to correct you.
Diageo is the former P. Diddy company,
They
right?
are. They are, Mike.
So
They
here
are.
is my question. You got a tariff question. I have a question. Like, now that the United States Attorney General is going to become a pedophile, or is a pedophile and sex trafficker, allegedly, what happens to P. Diddy? Does he go to prison next year, or does he become ambassador to France?
First of all, we need to unravel this a little bit more. And we're about to go down a rabbit hole that I don't think we need to necessarily spend a lot of time on. But the CIA got a hold of Diddy. And through the tapes they had, they were able to blackmail him and all his party guests into having celebrities come out
Yes.
on the side of the Democrats through the presidential election cycle.
Oh, tell me more, Tucker Carlson.
And because of that, because of Diddy's unloyalty, but not because of his own
Not because of the
choosing.
sex trafficking.
No, only because he was not loyal to the GOP, Diddy will in fact go to prison.
Oh, bad move, Diddy.
But what I really,
Not on the sex trafficking, but
but to bring this all around to the premiumized, isolated Diageo section now, how the heck was Diageo so far ahead of this? And why didn't they warn us about all the baby oil?
there's gonna be like a baby oil slick there at the P. Diddy mansion. It'll be difficult to walk.
Mike, are we looking at the return of organized crime via illicit alcohol production?
I hope so.
You know, those guys did a lot of good things. Do you know why a lot of the social movement stuff we have in our country, like food benefits or food stamps, started because in Prohibition, these gangsters that were taking over neighborhoods realized that they could win the hearts of their community if they actually took care of their community. And so they would give away and start, what do they call it, like soup halls or soup lines?
Yeah.
They started all that stuff. And then the government's like, well, shit. These guys are threatening us because we're not doing the right thing for our people, so let's start all these programs. So interestingly enough, you joke about them hoping they come back, but maybe it's not a bad thing. But we mention it for a specific reason. Something happened in Indiana that's causing home distilling to catch some heat.
They killed some people, which the Indianese tend to do occasionally out of stupidity. But
The government or
the Indianese, people from Indiana.
yeah, the Indiana government or the home distiller from Indiana.
People from Indiana. They like to be called Hoosiers, but it's such a stupid word, and I hate Indiana. So I like to refer to them as the Indianese.
No, I like
just
that.
because it irritates them.
I like that. Yeah.
The way that like Republicans refer to the Democrat Party, just for no reason, like except to be a dick. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the Indianese kill people sometimes, Brett.
So go on, get into this, get into the story.
It was a home distiller thing, and I mean, it was a guy not just distilling for his own purposes, but he was selling some of it. But you know, a lot of people that are doing home distilling are selling a little bit here and there to friends, whatever. This guy turned out to be a complete bonehead, and he was using bad equipment, and he was getting methanol in the that's the correct one, right? The one that's bad,
Yeah,
methanol. So
Makes you go blind.
He was it makes you go blind, and also apparently will kill you. And it's a typical thing. I mean, I have been told, I've never home distilled, but I have been told that it ain't rocket appliances to get the methanol out of the liquor. But some people, particularly in Indiana, are not that smart. So there is a risk. I mean, like, your biggest risk with home brewing, aside from possibly blowing up your garage from an open flame, your biggest risk with home brewing is that the beer is really going to suck. Your biggest risk with home distilling is that you will turn somebody blind or kill them. So there is a difference in those two things, and we've talked about this in the past.
Man, I totally misread this story entirely.
Yeah.
I literally thought the guy was just like, I'm distilling and I'm shooting people. It's like, I'm a murderer plus a home distiller.
No, that's Kentucky.
Oh, he poisoned people.
He poisoned people.
Oh, well,
Not intentionally.
He's just totally a dumbass then.
Yeah, but it's something like 5 people died, and so it happened, and it's causing the DOJ, the present DOJ, not the future one run by a sex trafficker, to kick back on these lawsuits that are trying to legalize home distilling. And we've talked in the past that there are entire states. West Virginia really led the way for embracing the culture of home distilling, and they're going like marijuana on home distillation, where it's still
part of our
criminally, still
cultural heritage and blah, blah,
federally,
blah,
it's still
blah.
federally illegal. But West Virginia said we're going to make it legal on a statewide basis. Well, I mean, fine, and I understand the whole moonshine culture, and there is history to it. I respect it, but there is that risk to it that you just don't have with making your own wine or your own beer.
Gnarly Gnome brought up a good clarification in the chat. He wasn't just fermenting like sugar wash and distilling that. He was getting industrial waste alcohol and trying to redistill it to make it safe, which you can do. But again, you have to be very, very, very careful about that.
Yeah, and I think it even went deeper that like the industrial waste alcohol was mislabeled. So, he thought he was getting a product that was different from what he was getting, and then he was treating it improperly. So there were like multiple layers of not just incompetence, but just multiple layers of bad luck, incompetence, and stupidity that led to this. So it's kind of a fluke. It's not like... I think that it probably overstates ultimately the dangers of home distilling. And the Gnome has a good point.
This is a hit piece, is what it is.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's that one example of like, here's this one thing that went bad, so...
Okay, is Kanye Emter dead in our country? Like, fuck me. Like, listen, I know everyone wants to save money, but like this little thing here that says government warning on it means that it's, government certified. The government has approved the ingredients. They've improved the process. They've improved the label. They basically approved and put their stamp on everything that you can basically trust it.
The beer might not taste right, but it's not going to poison you.
Exactly. If you're buying shit from Bob from Indiana down the street who lives next to a medical waste facility and he's getting industrial alcohol and redistilling it, and he's selling it to you for cheap as shit, maybe, just maybe, you should question that.
Perhaps.
I don't see how this is the problem of home distilling. I think this is a problem of the Indianese.
The social Darwinism, really, is where I think we land.
And is that not okay anymore?
Yeah, sure.
Look, I don't want anyone to get hurt through malicious intent or anyone to get hurt if they're just trying to live their life and be a good person.
Mm-hmm.
But fuck me, does everyone need protected all the time? Is that just how it is? Is this what old people say? Is this a rant that old people just have? God dang it.
Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes people fall off the cliff because they're stupid. Doesn't mean you should put up guardrails.
My retirement goal is to have a home still and make my own liquors and moonshines and just give them away to the neighborhood folks. But, I can't realize that dream if the Indianese are just going to keep killing people because they're medical malpractice.
Yeah. Well, the Indianese have not done one solid thing for America, Brett.
I don't know if Indianese is going to stick, and at this point in time, I feel like we've overused that word entirely too much. So it's making me question the whole joke. But I kind of hope it does stick. I want to hear that out and about in the wild more.
There's not Kurt Vonnegut. That's the one thing that Indiana has done for the world.
I was going to say Mike Pence.
Yeah.
People lie.
Bullshit.
So there was an article that came out basically exploring the differences between what people say they want and what people actually want, which has a lot of resonation with the recent election. However, what people say they want with craft beer is low ABV, sessionable, somewhat healthy. What people really want is what's in the sales data. High ABV, high flavor, usually high in sugar, and they just want to get knocked on their ass. Look at Voodoo Ranger. Look at Costco just saying that they can't even keep their Imperial Stout in stock right now because it's $10 for a six-pack.
Fruity, sugary, 9+% ABV.
People want value out of their alcohol.
It's not, polling data, political polling data, we're not going to get into, but just self-reporting consumer data, that polling data, it turns out to be notoriously inaccurate because people lie. And they're not intentionally lying, but they're kind of tricking themselves usually. Like this happens with coffee. If you poll people, like, what do you like in your coffee? Do you like a rich, bold flavored coffee, or do you like a thin, watery coffee? People will say, oh, I like a rich, bold roast. But when you look at actual sales data, like you put coffee side by side, McDonald's, Dunkin' Donuts, it knocks it out of the park in sales because people actually want a thin, watery coffee. They just think that they're supposed to want a dark, rich coffee, the same way they think they're supposed to want a low to moderate ABV flavorful beer.
Which is hilarious because it's that way across so many sectors. Hops is the same way. The Brewers Association put out a study where they did a consumer survey of what hoppy flavors do you want in your beer. The number one flavor was like dank, resinous, piney.
No, they don't.
Those are the top three. And then they look at the data of what hop flavors are actually selling. And it's tropical, citrusy, and fruity.
Yeah.
They're the exact opposite of what people wanted. In fact, the lowest performing hop flavors were piney, resinous, and dank. So, like, what can you do with that? Like, that to me is what's infuriating. That took me so long to understand, is that, like, as a brewer and brewery owner, of like, I'm making these things that I think people want and they tell me they want and that I'm passionate about, and then I make it and it doesn't sell. Saisons, I'm looking at you. But then you make something that, like, you just think like, oh, this is bullshit, or I'm not super proud of this. And it goes out there and it just absolutely slays. And ultimately what it distilled down to is just that, is you can't look at what the customer says they want. You gotta actually look at what they're buying and spending their money on.
I can answer this question for you to some extent. And it's a really famous example. It's Diet Coke. So Diet Coke is by far the most popular diet soda drink.
I think it's Coke Zero now, actually.
Well, maybe.
If we're splitting hairs. But it's a diet version of Coke.
I mean, the one that was really the big...
The original.
The one that really kind of took off was Diet Coke. And Diet Coke tastes significantly different from the other diet products that were, they came out at the same time in that market. You know, Diet Pepsi, Diet Dr. Pepper, etc. And the reason for that is that they hired a guy to develop Diet Coke, and they gave him a bunch of market research. Here's what people say they want. And so, like Diet Pepsi, for example, was developed on what people said they wanted, which is something that basically tasted like Pepsi, but pulled the sugar out of it. But really, when you made it, that's not what they wanted. So this guy took all the market data that they had at Coke, and he tossed it out the fucking window. He said, people don't know what they want. We need to create something that's good, and then they'll buy it. And that was right. His correct inclination was to completely ignore what people said they wanted and give them and figure out what they actually wanted. And it sold.
Well, that's the whole debacle between like the original New Coke debacle came from that. Anyway, that was the one sip taste test.
They learned from that, right?
Yes. Interesting. Well, kind of dovetailing off that whole situation is a couple stories I want to get into. One is, well, the big. We'll do the small one first. I have a big one and a small one. The small one is Christmas parties.
I hope the big one's Arnold Palmer.
We all know the big one's Arnold Palmer. That schlong is laying end to end on this bar. You ever heard of a Chicago rail? It's because Arnold Palmer's from Chicago.
Yeah. I hope Arnold Palmer comes up in every State of the Union address for
the next 4 years?
For the rest of American history.
Christmas parties, Mike. Christmas parties.
Yeah.
People are out there saying, 20% of people are saying that they're going to have Christmas parties with zero alcohol. And I call BS. I call absolute BS. There's no effing way 1 in 5 Christmas parties won't have alcohol in them.
I call, put that on the invitation because I'm not coming.
Now, this company that did the research...
That's not true.
No, the company that did the research blamed it on Gen Z because they're pushing towards a healthier lifestyle and healthier attitudes and yada, yada, yada. No, what it is it's just misrepresentation of the data and not understanding consumer behavior. What they're basically finding, I think, is that 20% of people probably won't have much or anything to drink, but there's no effing way 20% of all Christmas parties don't have some form of alcohol at them. That's absolutely bonkers. I don't believe it. The only way I believe it is if it's a holiday party for a company.
Yeah. Now, those that cut out alcohol because of HR policies becoming
liability and this and that and all sorts of crap. What?
Yeah.
See,
you can't just get drunk and Xerox your ass anymore. It's
you can't go to an 80s Christmas party and do lines of cocaine and go to the Xerox room and get blasted on alcohol and then have German terrorists come in that you have to fight. This just doesn't happen anymore.
Right. Well, the last part might. But Bruce Willis is not going to help.
No. Now, I want to dovetail right off of that Gen Z, like F Gen Z and Gen Z this and that crap into this. Gen Z supposedly is getting healthier, right? They claim the healthy thing.
Whatever. Good luck with World War III, bitches.
But let me give you some data that contradicts that exactly. The favored cocktails right now in the bar world are all moving towards sweeter and sweeter and sweeter. Soda is seeing a rise for the first time in over a decade. Soda. And it's not driven by millennials and Gen X and boomers. I'll tell you who it's driven by. It's driven by younger people. They're buying more soda. Energy drinks laden with sugar, seeing a huge rise. It's not that we're seeing Gen Z wanting to be healthier, because they're not.
No.
Gen Z just thinks alcohol's not cool anymore. That's
they're just
it.
Getting
That's
sanctimonious about booze.
They're just getting sanctimonious about booze, and
they're doing every other unhealthy thing.
That's exactly what it is. And I mean,
less booze and coke, more a bunch of other shit that's terrible for you.
And if you look at what is popular within craft beer too, which we touched on earlier in this show, it's that the new malt liquor isn't malt liquor. It's 9%, 10% ABV fermented malt beverages or craft beer laden with flavors and sugars. Those are the new bangers that used to be malt liquor. You don't get off work anymore and buy a Steel Reserve. You get off work and buy a Voodoo Ranger, and you pound that on your way home, road soda style. So this whole crap about the customer doesn't know what they want, and people say this and that. It's all a bunch of bullshit. People want the same thing they've always wanted in this country since Prohibition. sugary ass, high concentration alcoholic drinks.
Yeah. Yes.
So, is Gen Z going to save the world? No, because they're just as fucked up as all of us. They just like to pretend they're better than us in alcohol.
We have said a lot of times, and when you look and break down the data, America's #1 drug problem is sugar. It's killing more people. Alcohol is not good for you, but sugar is killing more people than anything else. It's killing more people than alcohol. It's killing more people than fentanyl. Sugar is our most deadly drug.
Yeah, but we don't do anything about it. We don't even admit that it's a problem in this country.
Well, you have to confront corporations, Brett.
Well, that is the big issue. And as we move towards a corporate feudalism environment in this country, I don't think we're ever going to get away
Suck
from
down
it.
that sugar, baby.
Gnarly Gnome says that you don't ever really meet anyone from Gen Z because no one likes to admit they're actually from Gen Z. Because everyone in Gen Z also knows how much Gen Z sucks. What have you found teaching Gen Z kids? Is this the case?
I found that they're weird. I like some of them, but yeah, it's a weird generation.
It's not their fault, though.
It's not their fault. I mean, COVID and social media, it's screwed them up. They're a screwed up generation, and I feel bad for them, but I also feel bad for me because they're the future.
Gonna lose twice.
Yeah. Yes. I'm going to lose more than that, Brett.
I guess that's it for the news, actually. That's all our stories. So, we're on a tight 26 minutes. That's pretty good. Right on time. You want to do a From the Can beer review?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Sure.
What are we doing this week, Producer Dan? What are we doing this week? Yeah.
I was paying attention to
You got the beers over there?
We'll take a momentary pause while our Cracker Jack staff pulls out the beers.
Good. Good. Good.
Oh, yeah, really? Okay. This is the segment where Dan makes us drink shitty beer.
Genesee Honey Brown. Genesee is a brewery based in upstate New York, famous for their Jenny Cream Ale, a quite delicious beer.
Yeah, pretty
Some of you
beer.
might have had Genesee Honey Brown as your first ever craft beer. I know it was one of mine in college when I felt like getting fancy.
Yeah, I think I remember tasting one of these back, a million years ago and thinking, wow, this really blew me away.
Well, let's find out if this beer brewed with honey is any good. Mike, you pull out this delicious honey brown out of a beer fridge and you take a sip. What do you think?
I think it tastes like a cigarette. I hate it.
It tastes like someone barfed honey into my face.
I don't even get the honey.
You don't get
I think
honey
it
on
just tastes maybe like a Splenda packet in an ashtray. This is disgusting.
If you want to recreate the flavor of honey brown, go to your nearest local dive bar that still allows smoking, even though you're not supposed to. Take those ashes, put it on a piece of toast, a splash of honey, eat that shit up, and you got Genesee Honey Brown. Mike, I give this a 1.5 out of 10.
Yeah, that's generous.